Krishna Krishna. I could take the liberty of leading the first kirtan unless you had planned to do so. The thumb is up. All right. Let's get proper original sound on, so we can hear the birds chirping and the lawnmowers whirring. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotar Satashi Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Ganga Mayi ki jai, Jamuna Mayi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and friends. Still waiting for Maharaj to show up. I haven't heard from him, so I expect him to. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So tonight, starting with third canto, chapter 31, beginning with verses 45 and 46, they're grouped together. Let me just get to that because my page flipped here. Dravyopalabdhi stanasya dravyeksha yogyatas yat panchvatvam ahang manad utpatir dravya darshanam yatakšnor dravyavayava darshana yogata yada tadaiva chakshusho drashtur drashtritva yogyatanayo. When the eyes lose their power to see color or form due to morbid affliction of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity, who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, when the physical body, the place where perception of objects occurs, is rendered incapable of perceiving, that is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth. Purport: when one says, I see, this means that he sees with his eyes or with his spectacles. He sees with the instrument of sight. If the instrument of sight is broken, or becomes diseased, or incapable of acting, then he, as the seer, also ceases to act. Similarly, in this material body, at the present moment, the living soul is acting, and when the material body, due to its incapability to function, ceases, he also ceases to perform his reactionary activities. When one's instrument of action is broken and cannot function, that is called death. Again, when one gets a new instrument for action, that is called birth. This process of birth and death is going on at every moment by constant bodily change. The final change is called death, and acceptance of a new body is called birth. That is the solution to the question of birth and death. Actually, the living entity has neither birth nor death, but is eternal, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The living entity never dies, even after the death or annihilation of this material body. Om jnana timirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam. Bandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitangs Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangs Cha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In essence, this section I see is Kapila Dev giving a rather detailed operating manual for the human body. And as in operating manuals within our experience of things that we buy, there are certain elements present there. The objective is stated, what the machine or whatever it is that you buy does. It can make dips in seconds, for example. So he's showing, first of all, which we read previously, the benefits, the unique prerogatives of the human body. And then, as in other owners or operators manuals, you have those yellow triangles with the exclamation points. Warnings, these things can occur. Do not immerse your machine. So we just finished with that, all the very intense descriptions of the hellish sufferings due to selfish, gross, sinful activities. And then there's troubleshooting, what to do in case of difficulty. And of course, the all-important customer service. One should approach a spiritual master. As Prabhupada will mention in the purport to the next verse, the remedial measures, in other words, the troubleshooting, can be understood when one associates with persons who are liberated. So don't just call anybody, call the dedicated customer service line. In this combination of verses 45 and 46, it talks about actually the material body being dismantled from the soul. The word ayogyata comes up a number of times, which is translated as incapability. I was thinking about the way that the word is constructed. The last part of it, ta, sort of equates to the English suffix ness, or a state of being. And then ayogyata, where of course yog means connection, so it's like being cut off. You're cut off. You cannot interact with the gross body as an instrument for perception any longer. Sometimes we even have this occur in our daily lives prior to death itself, but we feel out of it. We're ayogyata. We're incapable. We have difficulty interacting. So that's discussed here. Also, this he says the final change is called death, and acceptance of a new body is called birth. He says that is the solution to the question of birth and death. When I first read that, I thought, well, what is actually being said there? What is the question of birth and death? But what I take this to mean in context, and it seems to flow well with the rest of the purport, is that this is just how it works. Wow. This is what birth is. This is what death is. The instrument is working. The seer is able to connect through the instrument, like, the VR goggles are working properly. Therefore, you're able to see the virtual world. When they're not, you're not. So this is the question of birth and death. He equates death with the ultimate dismantling of the separation of the material body, and the seer. He can no longer use it as an instrument. And it appears that Maharaj has not yet shown up. But there's some nice comments here. Tulsi Priya says, customer service should be a certified agent of the manufacturer. Good point. And Panchatattva Prabhu says, assemble at your own risk. Always good. And Tulsi Priya says, more like tech support. Yes, very good. Hare Krishna. Srila Vishwanath has quite the purport for these two verses. I'll read it because the way that things are worded is not only interesting and extensive, but also, I think, just it sounds good. It's verbally charming. This is the verse. When gross objects of the earth cannot be perceived by the gross organ of perception. So dravya, that's dravyopalabdhi, the gross objects of the earth, cannot be perceived by the gross organ of perception. Because the gross body has been destroyed, it is called death, even though the subtle organ still exists. By identifying with another gross body, birth takes place. This is the cause of seeing gross objects again. Similarly, when the gross eyeball becomes incapable of seeing gross objects because of disease, the subtle eye sense organ of a person becomes incapable of seeing. And here's how he comments. The characteristics of death and birth are again clarified. In this example, dravya means objects situated on this earth. When the gross body, the place of perceiving the objects, is destroyed, and the subtle body is incapable of perceiving those objects on its own after the dissolution of the gross body, that state is called death, panchatvam, for the jiva, though it is not his nature. So that's the situation of like a ghost, the subtle body incapable of perceiving those objects on its own. We need the gross body to perceive things of this earth in their proper full way to get full benefit of the virtual reality analogy. Birth arises because of the appearance of the identity with another gross body, with the thought that I am this body. This is the cause of seeing objects on this earth. An example is given. When the eyeballs, gross matter, are unable to see parts of objects because of destruction in the form of eye disease, then the eye sense organ, subtle, also cannot see. When both the gross organ and the subtle organ are incapable, then the seer becomes incapable of acting as a seer. That incapacity takes place on this earth, not in Swarga or hell. I thought that was very interesting. It makes a differentiation between this incapacitation happening only on earth, not in Swarga, where you're always enjoying and your senses are not incapacitated. That doesn't happen there, like so many other things don't happen there. Or in hell, where things are designed for another kind of experience, but your senses are not incapacitated. You wish your senses were incapacitated in hell, but they're not. From understanding the explanation given in the example, the appearance and destruction of gross bodies in Swarga and hell are not really birth and death. They are simply called disappearance and appearance of the gross and subtle bodies. So there's that. And Hare Krishna. So no further comments or questions. And it looks like Maharaj hasn't shown up, and I expect he is simply busy. So Radhesha Prabhu, if you'd like to carry on from here, that would be awesome. Oh, if you've got child there, if you can't, that's cool too.
I'm not sure he minds. He seems to be enjoying the kata, sleeping soundly. Yeah, I can read. Oh, here we have a comment from Tulsi Priya Devi. People consume intoxicants to intentionally incapacitate their senses. Yeah, it's a numbing function. I have a psychiatrist as my uncle, and he was telling me that one of the pieces of advice he gives to patients who are addicts is he says, try to take a few minutes before taking some intoxicant, sit with the emotion that you're trying to avoid. And if you sit with it for a little bit, then you'll find that that it wasn't so bad. That what you had to tolerate wasn't the end of the world. It was just some discomfort. And so yeah, people are trying to numb this experience. They're trying to escape from the discomfort of having a body, which is the nature of the soul being eternal and blissful. It is very uncomfortable to be in something temporary and miserable. So we escape it with some artificial heightened state, which is so far from bliss.
And speaking of uncomfortable, the man has got a baby on his chest. I can't imagine that's very comfortable trying to host at the same time. So I'm happy to carry on here.
All right, I leave it to you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. And Tulsi Priya says, there's a saying in recovery circles, feeling your feelings won't kill you, but whatever you do to avoid them might. Thank you for that. Hare Krishna. All right. So, Panchatattva Prabhu, would you like to read our next verse, which is text number 47?
Sure. Text 47. Tisman nakarya santraso nakarpanyam nasambramaha budva jivagatim dhiro mukta sangas chared iha. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Purport. A sane person who has understood the philosophy of life and death is very upset upon hearing of the horrible hellish condition of life in the womb of the mother or outside of the mother. But one has to make a solution to the problems of life. A sane man should understand the miserable condition of this material body. Without being unnecessarily upset, he should try to find out if there is a remedy. The remedial measures can be understood when one associates with persons who are liberated. It must be understood who is actually liberated. The liberated person is described in Bhagavad Gita, one who engages in uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord, having surpassed the stringent laws of material nature, is understood to be situated in Brahman. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond the material creation. It is admitted even by impersonalists like Sankaracharya that Narayan is transcendental to this material creation. As such, when one actually engages in the service of the Lord in various forms, either Narayan or Radha Krishna or Sitaram, he is understood to be on the platform of liberation. The Bhagavatam also confirms that liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position. Since a living entity is eternally the servitor of the Supreme Lord, when one seriously and sincerely engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is situated in the position of liberation. One should try to associate with a liberated person, and then the problems of life, namely birth and death, can be solved. Maybe we'll pause there to take comments and questions. Om Jnana Tarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshumani Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the emphasis, it seems to me, in this verse is knowledge, transcendental knowledge, detachment. We've heard, of course, through previous verses of the miserable conditions at both the time of death and at the time of the child developing in the womb and so forth. But we're being guided, instructed to not take these things as our sole focus, our sole concern. We should be looking on all of this with some knowledge and with some detachment. Instead of being completely horrified by these situations and without considering one's higher purpose in life and seeing the advantage that one can take of his present or her present situation, we should continue on in our investigation in Krishna consciousness to try to seek out the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our present condition under the three modes of nature kind of lends itself to becoming overwhelmed or becoming absorbed, becoming attached, becoming bewildered. But a transcendentalist avoids those pitfalls, as is mentioned in the purport. He tries to associate with the liberated person, and liberated people have this quality. They are engaged in uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord, having surpassed the stringent laws of material nature. So by that association and by that meditation, one can actually view everything in perspective. Otherwise, we lose our perspective. We become overwhelmed by happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, fame and infamy. But as we read throughout the pages of the Bhagavad Gita, we have to become transcendental to the three modes of nature, engaged in devotional service. And Prabhupada mentions service of the Lord, as well as taking shelter of a liberated soul, service of the Lord in various forms, either Narayan, Radha Krishna, or Sitaram. That is the position from which one can understand, and through which one can understand the various existential questions and conditions of material life, with a mood of detachment towards matter. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you so much, Panchatattva. I'm eager to hear more from you. Since you paused for comments, I was reading the same purport earlier, and I was encouraged to read Prabhupada's first statement in the purport, where he says that a sane person who has understood the philosophy of life and death is very upset upon hearing of the horrible hellish condition of life in the womb of the mother. I thought, whoa, I guess I'm sane then, at least, which was encouraging.
Yeah.
And also, as you were speaking, I was thinking how we're enjoined to become free from material attachment and aversion. It's not just that we're supposed to be just free from attachment, but aversion, I've heard so many times, is the flip side of the coin of attachment. It's evidence of it's evidence of a different kind of attachment, that you're still attached. You want what you've either you want what you haven't got, or you don't want what you've got, or something.
Yeah, sometimes we talk about enjoyment, enjoying this material world, and we don't realize that sometimes our business of getting absorbed in lamentation and hankering and so forth is also part and parcel of that term, enjoyment, that absorption. Yeah, it's a good point.
I'll read it just if it's okay. There's a couple of comments from Gurudas Prabhu, and then we can continue with the purport. He's quoting from the first lecture by Prabhupada on 7th canto verse on the subject of definition of death. He says, and then another stage is which is called deep sleep. Deep sleep, just like you are under chloroform or LSD. That is a kind of sleep only. It does not mean that you have become free from this material bondage. You are simply under some mental condition, sleeping condition, susuptihi, just like our death. What is this death? Death means a sound sleep for 7 months. That's all. A sound sleep for 7 months. As soon as I give up this body, I enter into another body in sound sleep. And sound sleep, just like you are sleeping sound, somebody is taking away to another place you do not know. We had that experience as little kids. We fall asleep at some party and our parents take us home, and you wake up and you don't even give it any thought. And then next, from a purport from the 3rd canto, something we previously read, our death means a sleeping for 7 months. That is the description we get from the Shastras. Just like you go on sleep every night. So death means to sleep for 7 months, unconsciousness, very deep sleep in the womb of the mother. Just like when we sleep deeply, there is no consciousness. There is no question of death. It is simply sleeping or deep sleeping like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this understanding of the horrors of death and birth and so forth. the non-devotees, they tend to sentimentalize both. They'll say about a person who has died, well, they're resting in peace. Or they'll say about and of course we know how uninformed and how sentimental we tend to look towards birth. But these things are, first of all, they're put into proper perspective in Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we are reminded constantly of the goal. It's like Prabhupada begins the second paragraph here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond the material creation. Period. And that's our goal is devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to attain that state, which we are transcendental spirit souls by nature. We come here to try to enjoy it, but our position is awkward at best in material life. So we're, basically being told, make the best use of a bad bargain. Don't make the worst use of it. Make the best use of it.
Aye. And Saraswati Mata comments, pranams, stated here, without being unnecessarily upset, he should try to find out if there is a remedy. I know someone that spends so much time and energy whining about whatever situation or problems they may be facing. But when the permanent solution, bhakti yoga, is presented as a permanent solution, then they dismiss it as wallowing in misery, as something they can relish while complaining about God's cruelty. Something my wife sometimes says is that, what do we possess as individual living souls? The only thing we possess is our own suffering, and we're very possessive of that. Gurudas Prabhu says, and about aversion, yes, we have to be free of attachment and aversion. Yet one could argue that a devotee who wants to follow the rules of sadhana bhakti wants to be engaged in aversion, isn't it? Or how should we think of aversion as something to avoid?
We're trying to avert the four rules. We're trying to avoid that in our lives and other various things. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. What is the nature of that aversion, though? I mean, if aversion becomes a kind of hateful repulsion, then it's also a kind of, and if it takes the form of an aversion that's a constant thinking about that subject that we are trying to become detached from, then it's less attachment, less of, and more like an unfortunate meditation. For example, if a person is trying to, for example, be a brahmachari, a strict brahmachari, and they're always thinking about women because they're always thinking how they don't want to have anything to do with them, and it's just a damn shame that they even exist, then it's a real problem for that brahmachari. Prabhupada was told that, I don't remember the details, so Kendra Prabhu may, that particular brahmachari was complaining about the women in the temple. And then he basically said, well, then go to the forest, because that's the only way you're going to be free of this situation. And then there was some upheaval over the greeting of the deities song from the Chintamani prayers from a Samhita, because Mother Jamuna was leading it. Again, Prabhupada said, it's like symphony, it's concert. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? There's a point, in other words, I'm trying to give these as, kind of coarse examples, at which aversion becomes something too much aversion. I mean, you have the example of Jamunacharya saying, when he thinks since he's become so absorbed in meditation, in the service of the Lord, and meditating upon Krishna, when he thinks of sex life, he spits at the thought. That doesn't mean that Yamunacharya went around spitting on women or spitting on, or he just spent his time spitting. He was absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And whenever the thought of such other things, particularly sex life, came to his mind, he'd push them out with disgust. That's a little different. That's a different level of aversion, if you will. It's more detachment. Is that all right?
I appreciate what you're saying there. And he says, yes, so we want to avoid extreme aversion. The visual that comes to my mind in this regard, where he says one has to make a solution to the problems of life, is anyone who's ever driven on the Pacific Coast Highway in California, especially in certain portions of it, they know that on one side is a cliff and there's a guardrail and there's the ocean, and on the other side there's a double yellow line. So neither do you want to cross the double yellow line, nor do you want to cross the guardrail. Those are simply the guides that we follow in order to get towards our destination. But if we get so hung up, it's like, oh my God, there's the double yellow line. Oh my God, I can't. Or there's the sunset is so pretty. Go over the guardrail. No, the goal is to move forward because you have a destination. If you have no destination, or if your sole purpose for driving on the Pacific Coast Highway is sightseeing, you may encounter some serious difficulty. Hare Krishna. Perhaps we could continue with the purport.
Sure. While discharging devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, one should not be miserly. He should not unnecessarily show that he has renounced this world. Actually, renunciation is not possible. If one renounces his palatial building and goes to a forest, there's actually no renunciation, for the palatial building is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the forest is also the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If he changes from one property to another, that does not mean that he renounces. He was never the proprietor of either the palace or the forest. Renunciation necessitates renouncing the false understanding that one can lord it over material nature. When one renounces this false attitude and renounces the puffed up position that he's also God, that is real renunciation. Otherwise, there's no meaning of renunciation. Rupa Goswami advises that if one renounces anything which could be applied to the service of the Lord and does not use it for that purpose, that is called Palgu Vairagya, insufficient or false renunciation. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, everything can be engaged in the service of the Lord. Nothing should be used for one's sense gratification. That is real renunciation. Nor should one unnecessarily increase the necessities of the body. We should be satisfied with whatever is offered and supplied by Krishna without much personal endeavor. We should spend our time executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That is the solution to the problem of life and death. Hare Krishna. So we just read the solution to the problem of life and death. It's the application of that solution that can be problematic. And that is one of the many reasons we need to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Someone who's already, by practice, by realization, by knowledge, and by example, has successfully mastered this process of devotional service. Therefore, spiritual master. It's another meaning of spiritual master. Sometimes we think spiritual master, oh, well, there's a master and there's a servant, to be sure. But spiritual master also means there is success there. There's a mastery of the process of devotional service. This person is in a position to guide others in the process of bhakti yoga. So that's an interesting first statement in the paragraph. While discharging devotional service in Krishna consciousness, one should not be miserly, should not unnecessarily show that he's renounced this world. What do you think of that statement of Canterbury? I'm kind of analyzing that. How is that miserliness to unnecessarily show that you've renounced the world?
Well, I would say that since Maharaj has joined us, I would love to hear from him on this point.
Yes,
If
please,
he's
Guru Maharaj.
able to sound off on that.
How it's miserliness to show excessive renunciation of the material world.
Well, it says he should not unnecessarily show that he has renounced this world.
It's miserly. I'm not sure because Prabhupada uses that word in unusual ways. Miserly. I don't have an answer there immediately. Partly because I'm disoriented. Which verse and purport are we on? If you
okay. We're in chapter 31, text 47, and that statement is at the last paragraph of the purport, the beginning of the last paragraph of the purport.
The beginning of the last purport. One should not be miserly, yes.
I'm kind of starting to get that it's explained in the following sentences a bit.
Now let me see, first of all. The Karpanyam, that's where Prabhupada's taking it from. The Karpanyam, the Sambramaha. The Karpanyam, the Sambramaha. Budva, Jayadvaita Swami. The Karpanyam, the Sambramaha. So Prabhupada's taking it, this Karpanyam and Sambramaha means in enjoying the material world. So in the Karpanyam, the Sambramaha. My sense is that I'm looking at the verse now and the word for word meanings. The Karpanyam, one shouldn't be stingy and one shouldn't be overeager. And Prabhupada takes stingy as defining the body as the soul. So it's that, as in Bhagavad Gita, Karpanya dosho patasvabhava. And that Karpanya, Prabhupada takes as being that miserly weakness of heart. It's like petty. Miser is like pity, it's just, so Karpanya, taking this bodily conception of life as all in all is a miserly way of doing business, or a miserly way of spending your life, defining the body as the soul. That's what I see at the beginning. Now let's look down. In one sense, performing devotional service if all you're doing is being renounced, you're being miserly, in that you're not giving fully devotional service to the personality of Godhead. You're still on this petty platform of renunciation, which is practically speaking still in relationship to the material body. I'm an enjoyer, I'm renounced. It still has to do with the dualities of material existence, and you're not giving devotional service, pure devotional service to Krishna. You're still stuck on I have to be renounced, or I am renounced, and you're missing the point. And the point, Prabhupada's point is clear about what false renunciation is. I renounce this Bank of America. When was it yours?
Is that where the miserliness comes in, Guru Maharaj? Because the idea is it was mine and I've renounced it when it was never mine in the first place.
Well, that's the example that Prabhupada gives. That, what essentially says, well, what is this renunciation? It's like, what is this enjoyment and what is this renunciation also? And okay, we know enjoyment's not what we're supposed to be dedicating our life to, but here Prabhupada's also saying not renunciation either, because that renunciation, what can you renounce? So if your life is all dedicated to renunciation, in one sense it's dedicated to a foolish, petty thing, because you don't have anything to renounce to begin with.
Yes.
Thank you, Guru.
Was there more you wanted to say, Maharaj, on that?
No.
I was peeking at Srila Vishwanath's commentary, and he translates it a slightly different, or it's translated a slightly different way. Instead of miserliness there, it's just used as miserable. And of course, if you're a miser, you will be miserable. Quite an active chat window here. I'll try to address all the comments and questions in order, I think. Praveen Prabhu provides Yadrichchaya matkathado jata shadhast tuya puman na nirvinno nati shakto bhakti yogosya siddhida. If somehow or other, by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing and chanting my glories, such a person, being neither disgusted with nor very much attached to material life, should achieve perfection through the path of loving devotion to me. Thank you for that, Praveen Krishna Prabhu. And Murari Gupta Prabhu says, Hare Krishna, Haridas Thakur wasn't averse to the prostitute. He just engaged her in hearing Hare Krishna because she was a spirit soul. Thank you for that. And Radhesha Prabhu quotes Prahlad Maharaj's instructions from 7th canto, 9th chapter. The Kripanas, the fools who are just the opposite of Brahmanas, are not satisfied by repeated sensuous enjoyment. Those who are dhira, however, who are sober and who tolerate this itching, are not subjected to the sufferings of fools and rascals. So Kripanas equal to misers. And Tulsi Priya has a hand up.
I took it down. I left a comment in the chat.
Oh, okay. All right. So she says, this reminds me of the story of the Avanti Brahmana, who is so miserly that he didn't spend a farthing even for his own sense gratification. His renunciation served no one in any way, neither materially nor spiritually. Thank you for that. And Tulsi Toshini has a hand up.
Yes, thank you. Actually, like Prabhupada gives some example at the end of the purport. He says like how, like if you don't even engage anything for the Lord, it becomes like useless renunciation. So this is the way I see it, miserly. Like if you're not even able to use things for the service of the Lord, then I see it this way, miserly renunciation. If it
Yeah.
makes any sense, I don't know. Thank you.
Saraswati Mata asks, can a devotee be miserly when they have things that should be used for service of Lord Krishna, but they want to hold on to it for their comfort or security of body? Maharaj, would you like to address that as a question?
Can a devotee be miserly when they have things that should be used for the service of Krishna, but they want to hold on to it for their comfort or security of body? Well, sure, that is miserly, stingy. Yeah, that's still aham mama. One thing is enjoying, and the other thing is renouncing. So yeah, so both things are there. By the way, I was looking at Kripana. It's both stingy and miserable. Let's see, what else was there? I don't have what else was there right now. I don't think, but both meanings. Oh, yeah, pitiable, miserable, poor, wretched, and then also stingy and miserly. So all of those things are in Kripana. And from Kripana we get Karpanya, the quality of being a Kripana.
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. And I missed an earlier comment by Gurudas Prabhu. He's quoting, we should spend our time executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That is the solution to the problem of life and death. And Gurudas says in the last two sentences, Prabhupada says very simply, that solution to the problem of life and death is devotional service. The solution is in the process. Sometimes Prabhupada explains a purport in such clear terms, even a dull stone with a covered heart can grasp the meaning, and one is even more condemned, more pitiable, if he cannot. Thank you. Panchatattva Prabhu has a quote here from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Upayunjataha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyamuchyate Prapanchakataya Budhya Hari Sambandhi Vastunaha Mumukshubhi Parityago Vairagyam Palgu Katyate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. Thank you for that. Murray Gupta Prabhu says misers don't do much because it costs them, and they don't want to spend what they have, even though the whole point of having money is to spend it. Good.
Yeah.
Gurudas Prabhu says, Prabhupada repeatedly warns us not to think ourselves as empowered as Haridas Thakur to be able to be offered, in essence, sex with a woman and be able to convert the woman and not fall subject to her charms, fire and butter pot, etc. Perhaps, he comments here, perhaps miserliness is more like, I have been granted the use of something, but instead of sharing it, I hoard it out of the illusory idea it's more important for me to use that thing and enjoy its use than for you to use it. I am more important than you. And Tulsi Priya says, it seems like misery and miserliness is a good self-diagnostic. If you feel miserable, you can examine yourself to see how you're being stingy with Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you for being benevolent with your time, Maharaj. We've reached time for kirtan, and I wonder who could lead our kirtan this evening.
Can I nominate someone?
Yes, please nominate someone. That would be a good idea.
You'll have to accept the nomination, but I was thinking maybe Madhupati Prabhu.
Yes.
Okay. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Guru Das Jayadvaita Swami Niti Namine Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Lord Premanande Hare Hare Bo. Jai Vishnu Pad Paramasya Parvadikacharya Stotra Sada Sisamas Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnu Pad Paramasya Parvadikacharya Stotra Sada Sisamas Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Divine Grace Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. आनंद कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नाम विचार हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। जय श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धननाथ जी की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मायापुर धाम की जय। नीलाचल क्षेत्र जगन्नाथ धाम की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। गंगा मैया यमुना की जय। तुलसी महारानी की जय। Midnight Tantra Book Distribution की जय। नाम संकीर्तन की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरे। All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Jai Jai. Thank you so much, Madhupati Prabhu.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for being here. I'm glad you could join us, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry for being late.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Haribo.
Haribo. Thank you,
you.
Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you.